Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We have a lot of folks just coming in, so please just give it 1 or 2 more minutes and we're going to kick it off. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Thunderstorm warnings in Toronto, but Lucy, I guess you and Asif are also in Toronto, right? So hopefully it's not too bad on your end either.
I'm actually in Cambridge right now. I have to run. I have to run to another thing after this. So yeah, it's I'm at an office in Cambridge, heading to Kitchener. It's just one of those days where we're running around, but it's not bad here at all. It's just a little bit of rain. There was quite a bit of rain on the way here, though. How about you, Asif? What's happening in your neck of the woods?
We got it early. We got it around 11 a.m. or so. So I think it's out of its system now. So the sun actually started to come out here. So
it's coming my way, is it?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it came from the west or if it's heading out west, but
yeah, I was just speaking to someone out in London before this call, and same thing. They got hit pretty bad just a little while ago.
Yeah.
All right. Just in the interest of time, just want to be respectful of all of our participants. So we're going to kick it off, and as people join, we're going to continue admitting them. So again, thank you everyone for making time during a weekday to learn more about the open bidding regulation changes coming to Ontario and how that might be affecting home prices. So I'm your co-host, Ahmed Rafiq, CEO of Souk, Canada's real estate and home services marketplace. And I'm joined here by my expert panel, Asif Khan and Lucy. Asif, I'll let you go ahead. Please introduce yourself and then to Lucy.
Sure. My name is Asif Khan. I'm the owner of Remax Prime Properties, and we have about 75 agents through our offices. And I'm just happy to be part of the panel and hoping to shed some light on what I think is going on. And we have Lucy Gagliardi.
Lucy Bioka.
Bioka, yes.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Lucy Bioka, and I am with Dominion Lending Centers, Valco Financial. I'm a mortgage broker. I've been a mortgage broker for about 10 years now. I now have my own little team. I like to keep it nice and small and personal. And again, as Asif said, hopefully I can shed some light on what's happening in the mortgage market right now, and how blind bidding can affect the financing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy. So Asif, why don't we jump right into it? Why don't you tell us from your perspective a little bit about what open bidding is all about, and when are some of these changes going to take effect in Ontario?
Okay, so open bidding it's kind of like an auction process, and there seems to be a perception out there that blind bidding is causing prices to appreciate. And we're going to get into that later. But basically what the government wants to introduce is an open bidding process where everyone can see, there's more transparency. So everyone can see the terms of the offer and be able to make an informed decision based on what the other people are offering as to how much they should offer on a property. And the hope is that this will calm down some of the price appreciation that we've seen over the last few years and be able to bring affordability back to the Canadian housing market. So it's going to start in Ontario, April 1st, 2023. And we're going to get into it in a little more detail as to why this could work or why it may not work.
Perfect. So yeah, obviously we have some time, and this is great for Ontarians to prepare and be educated around what are some of the impacts. So if we really think about home buyers and owners and sellers, Asif, how do you think this will actually affect the prices of homes? From my understanding, this is an option for home sellers. What is your understanding in terms of how this may affect prices of homes and people that are looking to sell their homes?
So I don't believe that open bidding is a solution to bring affordability or to calm the appreciation down, because what you're going to end up with, and we've seen this in a lot of instances, when someone loves a house and they'll be out there bidding, what ends up happening is, if in a blind bid, you don't know if someone has bid $5,000 more than you or $40,000 more but you're going to go in with your best offer, which could be 50,000 more than what you wanted to spend. If you know that you're $2,000 or $3,000 away from your competition, but you really want this house, you're going to keep bidding on this house. We used to buy restaurant equipment at auctions, and there was a time where I went and I was bidding on a fridge, and you lose track of all common sense almost, because you really want that item. And it's going to be no different in a house. If your wife or your husband loves a house and they really want this, and you're $5,000 off, doesn't matter what your initial budget was, you're going to put in $6,000 or $7,000, and the other person's going to put in $6,000 or $7,000. But if you don't know what you're up against, you may stop and that other person may get the house. And how many times, and Lucy, you've heard this too, someone will say, you know what, we lost out for $5,000. Had I known, I would have gone 10,000 more. So now they know. So are they going to go 10,000 more? They pretty much will. And that's why the perception that it's going to cause home prices to calm down is not going to happen.
Understood. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, Lucy, turning it over to you, with everything going on with, interest rate hikes, what's going on with the economy, inflation, what would you sort of recommend to, potential home buyers in terms of home financing, qualifications, appraisals? Share a little bit from that angle, please.
So Asif knows this. We've known each other for years, but and I always stress, you need to know who you're working with. You need to have a mortgage broker available to you when the offer is taking place, especially through, the blind bidding, or sorry, the open bidding that's going to take place at this point in time, or we're not even sure what's going to happen, but you have to know who you're working with. You have to be able to contact that person. If you're in the middle of an offer and you need to know if you can go $10,000 more, $10,000 less, like you need to have somebody that you trust that will pick up the phone at 8 o'clock at night. And, if Asif calls me, I know he needs me at 8 o'clock at night. You need to have that availability. Now, do I think that open bidding is going to really affect the mortgage? Truly, I don't. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think what's going to happen is, and I hate to use this analogy, but I'll use the analogy of the first-time home buyers incentive. It's quite frankly smoke and mirrors. It didn't work. It was something that our government basically thought, oh, this is just going to get a whole bunch of first-time home buyers into the market, and it didn't. And I from my perspective on the mortgage side, I believe that open bidding is going to be the same thing. They're going to try something. I don't think it's going to have the result that is intended. Now, with regards to the increasing rates, it is becoming a lot more difficult to qualify. So you have to get qualified. It's imperative that you get qualified. And I mean really qualified. I don't mean walk into your bank and the teller tells you, oh yeah, you've been with us for 40 years, don't worry about it. We now really have to look at numbers. As far as I'm concerned, and the advice that I give is, if you haven't provided all of your paperwork up front to the person that's working on your pre-qualification, you're not qualified. So it's so much more important for everybody to do the legwork on the mortgage part of it way at the beginning, way before you even start looking. And then when you're looking, you need to make sure that the person that you're working with is going to be available for you. So that, honestly, that's my take on what's taking place right now.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
just to expand on what Lucy was saying about smoke and mirrors, they're going under the false pretense that this is to protect buyers. Open bidding will protect buyers, but the final call on if you use an open bidding or a closed bidding process is the sellers. So the seller is going to be making this call. Now think about it. If this is not in the best interest of the seller and it's their call, would they be wanting to go this route? And if the sellers are choosing this route, they know that they're going to get more money in an open bidding platform.
What did you need?
So it doesn't really, it doesn't go with the premise that, hey, this is to
I
help
have an
buyers
appointment on
if you're allowing
Saturday.
sellers to control the process.
I just texted your brother actually. Telling
Sorry, go ahead, Asif.
Oh, no, and that's all I was going to say was that, it should be controlled by the buyers if you're trying to help buyers. But when the sellers are controlling which avenue they're going to take to sell their property, and if you eliminate that choice from sellers, now do we need a seller protection program, kind of like they're talking about this being a buyer protection program, then how do you deal with sellers? So if sellers are allowed to choose which avenue they take to sell their property and they see that there's a benefit to selling it in an open bidding platform, you're going to see all sellers do that. If they see that there's a benefit to a closed bidding platform, you're going to see all sellers do that. So this doesn't really do anything to help buyer affordability.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as if given that, you have a pretty large team that's, focused on serving clients, has this topic already started coming up with clients? Have they started asking about this? And what sort of the general advice that, your team is giving to those clients that are interested in, opting for this when it comes live?
So at the beginning, we didn't think that the open bidding platform would do anything to benefit the buyer. In fact, once, just with the examples I used earlier, we think it's a detriment to the buyer, because even if you have 5 or 6 people that are competing in an area, and they're moving from house to house, and you kind of get to know what the other buyer is going to be capped at. So if someone keeps dropping off at 1.2, you know that you're going to be able to beat them at 1.205, say. So how is that protecting buyer confidentiality when everyone else is out there and they're starting to get to know your tendencies, they're starting to get to know your limitations? It doesn't help them, right? The other thing is, with sellers controlling the process, it's not going to be beneficial to the buyers at all. So what we need to talk to our sellers about is, where do you think it's going to be their decision? So it's going to be, these are the pros, these are the cons. Where do you want to go with this? With the buyers, it's the same thing. You may have some buyers that if they find out it's an open bidding platform, they may not want to participate, right? So in the end, if you're limiting buyers with the system that you have, and if they should or should not enter into that offer, is that beneficial for the consumer? Is that beneficial for affordability? So there's a lot of questions out there. Of course, we'll educate our clients. And at the beginning, I think even we'll be excited to try out the open bidding platform if sellers do choose to go that way, and see where it goes, because it's going to be a lot of trial and error. It's going to be, if you look at countries that have used open bidding or the auction process, Australia. So there's a lot of talk that Australia uses it. They've been using it for years. We should use it too. But if you look at even from 2021, if you look at the numbers, Australia had a higher appreciation for housing than Canada did. So they were at 16.4%. We were at 16%. And they're using the auction process. So, the proof's going to be in the numbers for Canada, when we're comparing apples to apples. But again, I don't see it as being able to bring affordability.
Thanks, Asif. And then Lucy, a lot of times we hear, first-time buyers or people that are selling ask this question, hey, should I be buying first and then selling? Should I sell first and then buy? Given that these regulation changes are going to come in, how do you think that might affect affordability for people that are looking to sell and then buy, or vice versa?
So this particular regulation, truthfully, I don't think it's going to affect the ability to buy or sell. I think this is just really about the transparency from my perspective. Again, it's about the transparency in a transaction, which, quite truthfully, if you have ethical and you have realtors that understand what they're doing. And I hate to, I say that with a grain of salt, because obviously there's mortgage brokers that also act with different levels of integrity and ethics and that sort of thing. But I feel like there isn't going to be that that effect that everybody thinks there's going to be. And that's, again, time will tell. We're just going to have to sort of see what happens.
And also, for a real life example, I was selling a condo this weekend, and it came down to, there was 4 bully offers, came down to 2 people that really wanted it. And I gave them both one final shot. So one came up a lot, the other one kept asking, where they need to be. And, right now we're not allowed to disclose terms of the offers. But had I been able to do that, this person would have paid more. So that's where, it's another example of where open bidding can cause the price to continue to go up, because these people both wanted it and neither would have stopped. And then, where do we go from there when they're not going to appraise? And then Lucy's getting calls from appraisers to say, hey, this is $50,000 short. And that's all because of the open bidding, the emotional will to win type thing.
And that's, you said the right word right there, Asif, the emotional will. Okay. In circumstances and what's happening right now in bully offers and offer presentations, lenders look at the value, or appraisers, I should say, look at the value of a property. They're going to take comparables. Okay. Now, if we're in an increasing value, I mean, I from my perspective, and again, I've seen this through a bunch of my clients just over the last few weeks, values seem to be coming down slightly. Appraisers are being very cautious, and they are, but they will take certain market value. So let's say we've got a property, we're putting an offer in at $900,000. And that's really, what the comparables show you. And if somebody is willing to pay $100,000 more, they're willing to pay $1 million for that. The lenders and the appraisers are not, the lenders are not going to finance the emotional part of the transaction. So you have to be really, really careful with what market value is, especially in a stabilizing market. I don't want to call it a declining market, because I think we are, from my neck of the woods over here, we're stabilizing a little bit, but not in all markets. Okay, so remember the emotional component, or the emotional part of what the emotional cost of the transaction, if you want to call it that, lenders are just not willing to cover. As mortgage brokers, agents, realtors, you have to have this conversation with your clients prior to going out there to show them. You have to keep level-headed about, we can get a transaction done, we can sign a firm offer right now, but it doesn't mean it's going to close. Okay, and the conversations that need to be had while we're doing the pre-qualification is, what happens if the appraisal comes in short? If the appraisal comes in short, you have A, B, and C options. If there's no alternative, if you don't have additional resources, or you don't have somebody to call upon, you need to consider whether or not it's feasible for you to offer that extra 100,000. Truthfully, I had the situation with my daughter. She closed her purchase yesterday and closed her sale the day before yesterday. And we knew she was paying about $100,000 too much for this house. We knew it. We knew it was going to appraise at $100,000 less than she paid. So what did we do? We figured it. We actually used that as a worst case scenario. We ensured she had enough equity to be able to handle a worst case scenario in an appraisal. And if she didn't, can I help? Does she have any other family members that were able to help? And we sort of came together and we figured out the problem before there was actually a problem. And again, what we need to be doing is we need to be potentially looking at every transaction and saying, okay, what could go wrong? And we need to have a solution for that before you even go into the offer presentation. So it's covering your butt.
That's true. And with anything, if you set your limits beforehand and say, okay, this is what we're prepared to go in on this house. Because I think everyone agrees, there's a lot of talk about the lack of transparency, and this is what causes the lack of trust in realtors. And when you introduce something that has more transparency, it takes out that trust issue, because now you're seeing all the offers or the amounts of the offers, and you're still going to get people that are going to overpay. So as far as the value of a home that Lucy's talking about, you may even have people more inclined to overpay because they don't want to lose this house for $5,000 or $10,000, and they will keep increasing that value. And there's a false perception out there from buyers that, hey, I'm approved for $1 million. I'm going to go out and spend that $1 million. But what they don't understand is that's a pre-approval, but that type of property still has to appraise for what you're paying for it. Because if you're approved for $1 million, doesn't mean you can go out and buy a townhouse in Cambridge for $1 million, because that may not approve. But if you're buying a detached home somewhere for $1 million, yeah, that may appraise. So there's a lot of variables that go into play with an offer, and with people getting excited over the transparency of it and wanting to pay more just to win because now they know what they're up against. I think it could be a can of worms. And there's no disputing the fact that a lot of people are going to welcome this change. As realtors, I think, I'd love to try it out with my clients and have them do an open bidding process, because in my mind, I think the sellers will benefit from the transparency, because the buyers now know what they need to pay in order to get this property. But you got to rein them in. And as Lucy was saying, that $100,000 could make or break someone, and may end up losing their deposit, getting sued. So we got to tread carefully with this.
Yeah, and as if and Lucy, both of you guys, obviously this creates a lot of fluid situations where you need to be able to in the brink of the moment know, okay, can I do this? Can I not do this? What do you guys think about the underlying technology and the support that's available to clients today to be able to support those type of decisions in close to real time? Because they're not just speaking with their realtor. They got to make sure that they can get in touch with their mortgage broker. If there's an appraiser involved, there's a lot of moving parts, right? So what do you guys think about, obviously there are process changes coming, there'll be regulation changes coming. How about technology changes to, support the sellers and the people that are involved in the transaction in terms of being able to collaborate effectively, being able to communicate and make decisions on the fly?
It's imperative to have the technology behind the whole transaction. We don't use fax machines anymore. We need real-time answers. We need them now, and there needs to be technology that can support that. That's just, it's no longer pick up the phone and wait for somebody to call you back, or put the 25 cents in the payphone anymore. Yeah, the technology is imperative. And if there's technology that, I try to make myself accessible to everybody but there's only so many calls you can take at once, and there's only so many webinars you can be on at once. And if there's a technology that can bring it all together, absolutely. It's I shouldn't say it's important, it's necessary.
Yeah, especially when you're starting to get into a transparent process with offers. I mean, you want to have that mortgage broker in the loop. You want to have maybe a lawyer in the loop. And I mean, this might be a shameless plug for you, Amr, but like what you have developed with Souk, it keeps everyone on the same page and receiving messages as to every step of the process. And with transparency being introduced in terms of the offer process, this may be a perfect segue for what Souk wants to do with their platform in order to open it up for the open bidding process, to keep not only the buyers, the seller, the realtors in the loop with mortgage brokers and lawyers, but all the other realtors, because now you've got an avenue where you can share this, and it's confidential, because whoever has an offer is going to be able to see what's going on. You don't have to open it up to everybody. So it's not like an auction, but at the same time, it does provide an avenue for people to go to share this information and and for buyers to be able to make that informed decision because they're seeing everything online. And at the same time, maybe their mortgage broker is in the loop where they're saying, hold on, you have to back out right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and to be very transparent, that's one of the reasons we started Souk, because a lot of buyers and sellers that were going through the transaction, one of the things that we continued to hear from them was how difficult it was to coordinate, communicate with so many different people in the transaction, especially if we're looking at first-time buyers. The process is overwhelming as is, and then you're having to do a lot of document sharing, a lot of communication, appointment setting, and that doesn't happen just with one person, but with the realtor, the mortgage broker, the property inspector, the appraiser. And really, we at Souk believe in simplifying that journey for everyone that's involved in the transaction. And by bringing everyone together in one platform where you see the transaction, you see the realtor that's supporting it, the mortgage broker, the law firm, and like as if you said, right, everyone has sort of real-time updates in terms of where the transaction stands, what type of offers are available on that property. So we're definitely, from our perspective here at Souk, we're looking into facilitating this process. We're in conversations with different third parties in terms of how we can open it up to the general public, because a lot of the underlying infrastructure that supports the collaboration in real time, that brings that transparency, that simplicity between everyone in the transaction already exists on Souk. And now it's just a matter of sort of facilitating that offer management process and integrating that into our platform. So, we definitely love to share more with the participants in this call as well as outside when we come out with those changes. But I do feel like, having the right tools to facilitate that process is going to be crucial, even more than it is today, because availability is getting a hold of people, being able to get those answers when you need them, I think is going to play a big role going forward.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'm just looking at time. We're pretty much up in terms of the half hour. Maybe we can open the floor up to a few questions. We do have about 15 to 20 minutes for questions. So if anyone in the audience has a question for our panel here, please feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll go ahead and ask. I can see Howard there is all ready to ask a question. Let me just go ahead and unmute you, Howard. Give me 1 second. Oh, it looks like you signed in with a different name. Sorry. Go ahead. I think you just have to unmute yourself, Howard.
Got it. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
So first off, pleasure to be with all my colleagues. Asif, I know, Lucy, I know, Robin, I know, and I haven't gone down the list. This is just what I said. So yeah, nice to see you guys. So on the open bidding, this is how I see it. It really will have an effect or not an effect depending on the market. So if it's a seller's market, the buyers may not want to do closed bidding, but if that's what's going on, they're either going to make a decision to go ahead or not. But where I think it'll have an effect is if it's a buyer's market, and the seller decides they want to have open bidding, but the buyer doesn't want to do that, it's going to be pressure on the buyer to decide, what do I want to do? This whole thing about the government stepping in to determine how sellers should market their property, it's way over the line for me. Sellers should have the right to sell it any way they want within the rules of disclosure or whatever it is with a licensed agent. And I think this is what this is all about. We're talking about how do you do it with a licensed agent? How do you protect everybody without stepping on toes? And I don't think there is really a way other than to give this as an option. And it's going to be caveat emptor. People are going to decide: do I want to go and open? Do I not want to go and open? Lucy's points are really good about financing. I think it's always one of the big issues is, perhaps new agents don't recognize and I think SCF was on the same page. You know, when you get qualified, it doesn't mean you're going to get all that money. And the other thing is, markets change from when you get qualified, and they change like a hockey stick. They just drop down. That, I know you like hockey, Asif, so I thought I'd throw that in. But I think the important thing when you're representing clients is, you know, give them all the information to make a decision. I think Ari is doing a good job, and I know Luigi's on the call somewhere, of saying, hey, you know, the government shouldn't tell people how to market their homes. And I'm not a politician, but it probably has some political hay for the government to say this. So that's my 2 cents. And this, you know, it's Amir, thank you for inviting me to join your meeting today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Howard. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, here's the thing, Howard, you know, it shows how little the government understands about the market when they start stretching and they want to give people what they want to tell people what people want to hear. And that is, you know, when someone says blind bidding is causing price appreciation, the government jumps on that and says, oh yeah, you're right. We're going to bring in open bidding. You know, we all know if there was 600 buyers and 600 houses, we wouldn't have this price appreciation. There's a huge supply issue, not only in the GTA, but pretty much right across the country right now. And this takes the focus out or off of having to increase supply, because if they're increasing supply, there's a lot of work for the government to do to fix the infrastructure and to be able to support that supply. So, you know, grasping at straws and saying, you know, let's bring in open bidding. Sure, let's bring in open bidding. It does. We do need more transparency. And, you know, but will it affect the affordability? Bring it in under the guise that, hey, this is going to bring in transparency, but don't bring it in under false promises that it's going to affect affordability, because it's not. And that's where there's a disconnect between the general public. You know, as a realtor, we always get told that once open bidding comes in, prices are going to fall and I'll be able to afford a home. It's not going to happen that way. And to bring it in under that guise is wrong. Just bring it in under the guise that, hey, this is going to provide more transparency, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think in the chat, I was looking at the comment from Carrie from Open, and you know, she's alluding to the same fact that it's really all about creating that transparency and supporting the process that helps you know, the market in terms of moving in that direction, right? So definitely bidding wars, you know, we've seen them happen time and again, but I think the underlying transparency is obviously going to make a big difference to everyone that's involved in the transaction. So thanks for that comment as well, Carrie. All right, any other questions for our panel here? Feel free to throw your questions in the chat, or if you want to speak up, we're happy to unmute you so that you can ask your question directly. All right. Looks like we have a shy audience.
Or we did a great job.
I think you did a great job. If we've got realtors and mortgage agents and what have you on the call, they're definitely not shy. So I'm going to say we did a great job.
All right, thank you, everyone. And again, in terms of, you know, connecting with us here, you know, we have a lot of these experts, including real estate professionals, mortgage brokers, law firms, and pretty much everyone that you need to connect in your real estate journey here at Souk. They're always, you know, everyone that we've brought on, they've been very helpful in terms of, you know, helping home buyers and owners throughout their home buying experience. So feel free to connect with Lucy, with Asif, myself on souk.ca. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them to us. We're happy to continue, you know, facilitating this journey and, you know, make the journey of buying a home as stress-free and enjoyable for Canadians as possible. Thank you again for joining us, and wish you all a great rest of your afternoon. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all for coming out.